Happy holidays, folks! Today, GeekToons and I will be looking at 3 obscure animated Christmas specials from not very well-known or talked about shows. Before I begin, please subscribe to GeekToons and check out some of his amazing videos. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about how I will be reviewing mine. I will be talking about the story, plot itself, the comedy, and the morals and lessons of the episode, whether or not I think it was executed well, and then finally if I recommend it or not. The 2 animated Christmas specials I will be reviewing are the PJ's How the Super Stole Christmas and Pawn Life's Christmas. Now that we have that done, let's get to reviewing. The PJ's How the Super Stole Christmas. To start, the show goes with a really unique style of animation, albeit a little crude. It's either claymation or 3D emulated to look like claymation, or maybe a hybrid. Whatever it is, I love it. Not too often do we see a whole show made in this style, and even more rare is it an adult show. Great start. The show also has a nice upbeat theme song that gets you in the mood for the show.
Once upon a time in the projects.
So, past the basics and looking more specifically to the episode, we start out with this thief being arrested by a police officer, and out of all the days, it happens to be Christmas, which the officer points out. That segues into the actual episode. Because of the fact that the thief had the wrong attitude about Christmas, the officer tells him a story of someone who thought the same way he did. Throughout the episode, we cut back to the officer and thief a few times, which adds a little bit of extra comedy in there. Surprisingly, for it being a pretty serious episode, it's got some good comedy. Anyways, so the story starts out with Thurgood and his wife Muriel setting up the Christmas tree. By the way, I love the asbestos joke there. Muriel flat out just tells Thurgood that she wants a computer for Christmas after trying to be subtle. Thurgood isn't the best at picking up hints, so I should remind you, this show is from the early 2000s, so computers were still pretty expensive, and not many people had them. Thurgood is the superintendent at the apartment building place where he also lives. Basically, he has just enough money to get by, but that's it. So he goes around to all the people in the building who he helps out and asks for their help in return. He asks for tips to be sent back to his door in hopes to afford the computer for his wife. Unfortunately, that didn't go to plan, and I was kind of sad for him. He seemed like a hardworking man and no one gave him any tips. So he goes down to this pawn shop, and his buddy Walter tries to convince him to get his wife something more feminine, to which he pulls out a Glock. Gotta say, that was really funny. Stupid, but funny. He says no, and then he asks the clerk if they have any computers, to which the clerk shows him that they only have one. However, it's $500, which he does not have. Also, I kind of spoiled what happened. He said he'd be back once he got his tips, but when he goes back, like I said, he didn't get anything. So, anyways, he really wants to give his wife what she wants, which is really admirable. I think that's a good trait of his character. He does care about his wife's wants. So he went back to the shop and begged the store clerk. He said no, of course. However, the owner overheard and offers Thurgood a deal. The deal was that Thurgood would basically be a repo man and take things from that apartment building from people who were behind on their payments. Thurgood initially declined this offer because he didn't want his friends knowing that he repoed their stuff, but the owner reassured him that that wouldn't happen, and so he accepted the deal. Now, from an I need money standpoint, this is fine, but since he knew he was taking from his friends and he did this out of spite for them not giving him anything, I think the best decision for him would have been to not take the deal, stand by what he did originally, but he took it. So I mean, it was out of love for his wife, so I could go back and forth on that decision. Thurgood goes around collecting people's stuff while they're out rehearsing a play. He gets the computer and takes it home. Then he started to feel bad about taking the stuff, which to me just shows that while Thurgood can be inconsiderate and make some rash decisions, I think he has a good heart. But the store owner said that if he didn't take the rest of the stuff, Thurgood would have to bring the computer back. So then he decides to take the computer back. But as he's trying to leave with the computer, his wife comes in and opens the present, and she's super happy. So he's caught in a dilemma. Take it from her, or let her keep it and continue repoing his friends' stuff. But then Thurgood finds out that his friends whom he asked for tips from had money. So then he repoed the rest of their items out of spite. Again, another spiteful decision, which, makes me kind of not like him as much. But in the end, I think he learns his lesson. The decision on Thurgood's part was dumb and selfish, of course, but so he goes and takes the rest of the stuff down to the pawn shop. But afterwards, he has to go to this play for a line that he's doing. But as he does that, someone yells out that their stuff has been repoed in front of everyone watching the play. They all gather together, and Thurgood finds out that the reason his friends didn't give tips was because they were all saving up to buy him a massage chair, which is what he really wanted. And it's really sweet what they were doing. but it made Thurgood feel bad, of course. Then Muriel doesn't want the computer because all her friends had nothing. So as Thurgood is sitting in his chair like a decent person, he decides that he's going to sell the chair to someone and use the money to pay everyone's payments and then give them their stuff back. And so even though he really liked the chair, it meant more to him that his friends had stuff that made them happy than him being happy while they had nothing. His character went up and down throughout the episode, but in the end, he really learns a lesson. Even when you think people aren't being kind to you, or maybe they flat out aren't, still be kind to them, even if it's hard. Also, to end the episode, someone rats Thurgood out as the Repo Man, so they all beat him up. I feel like in some ways it was deserved, but in others not. Like, sure, he made the mistake, but he fixed it, so... Overall, the comedy was on point in this episode. I liked the little musical number, it was catchy, and I really liked the moral of the story. It's something people need to be better about in general. I feel like a lot of what people think about during the holiday season is, ooh, now's the time to put everything I want on my wish list because it's cheaper and people will buy it for me. It should be about how can I help others out? How can I give to others? How can I show others that I love them? If they want to get you gifts, that's great, but I wish more shows would portray it the way the PJs did. It's a good lesson to learn. Unfortunately, this show wasn't all that popular, so with all things considered, this was quite a good episode of a show I'm genuinely interested in checking out more of. I would recommend this to anyone wanting to watch a good Christmas tale this holiday season.
Merry Christmas, everyone. My name's GeekToons, fellow cartoon community nerd and snowman, here to bring you my review of a pretty unknown piece of Christmas-centric animation, that being the Life with Louie episode, A Christmas Surprise for Mrs. Stillman. Now, the series itself was created back in the 90s as part of a trend in television where several comedians got their own animated series. A good example of this is Bobby's World, which to my knowledge started the trend. But enough info, let's get into the episode itself.
Pop this piece of crap in, and what do you get?
The episode starts off with a live action sketch, which gives us a rundown of the main conflict for the episode. It cuts over to animation where we see our main character Louie in the car with his family. It's here we see one of the many times Louie's dad argues about Christmas stuff, like hanging up lights, buying a Christmas tree, and changing the channel on the TV. This type of structure continues until Louie's dad is given the task of putting up Christmas lights for their neighbor Mrs. Stillman. The first attempt goes awry as Louie's dad almost gets arrested by two policemen. Later on in the episode, some of Louie's friends show up to help. With the house looking better than it was before, all that was left was to plug the lights in. With only minutes left, they find the plug and Mrs. Stillman returns home to a fully lit and decorated house. The episode ends with the family exchanging gifts as the episode slowly fades to black. I gotta say, when compared to other cartoon Christmas specials, I'll definitely put this in the mediocre of the bunch. There just aren't that many positives to point out. I mean, there are some moments that made me chuckle, like the twist where we find out that Mrs. Stillman's actually Jewish, but other than that, it's just too boring. Seriously, at the time of writing this, I finished watching this episode with my friend Manuel D, and we both had some of the same thoughts on it. The special has its moments, but otherwise it's just plain boring. Is it worth watching? Nah, not really. I feel like there are far better specials you could watch and enjoy infinitely more. Anyways, that's all for me. Thanks to Entertainment Corner for having me, and have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Pond Life's Christmas. This episode starts out with a very unique sounding intro song and we get a taste of the animation style. I just happened to pick out two episodes from two shows with very different styles. That isn't a bad thing, but they're just drastically different, and not just from each other but also like regular animated sitcoms. Pond Life is definitely more in the realm of something like Family Guy because it's 2D, but it takes a much simpler approach, and that's where it's different, and I respect that. Another quick note, this is a British show, so the comedy definitely feels different.
Is she having a laugh?
Dolly, the main girl, starts out this episode shopping and realizes that Christmas is coming up. Then she's at home and looking to get away from her place and go on vacation when Christmas is happening to avoid all the chaos of her family. Which, in some ways, I don't blame her for, but Christmas is about spending time with loved ones and giving to them. A little selfish, but her mom also wants to go get away to a hotel, but she feels bad because she doesn't want to let everyone down, which is where I think her mom is more respectable. Later on in the episode, Dolly has a nightmare about leaving, so then she doesn't want to go, but she already went to talk with a travel agent, so she gets ready to go. But then we twist again, and she just decides to stay in her apartment. However, some friends from the street see something moving in her window, which, by the way, why didn't she just close her blinds? That's kind of stupid. And since they think she left, they think there's a burglar up in her apartment. They figure out that it's actually Dolly, and then Dolly has to go to her mother's to be with her family. So honestly, this special lost my interest within a few minutes. That's why I didn't write quite as much, because I just was really uninterested. Sometimes I'm okay with British shows, but this one is just really boring to me. I had a few laughs, but still it was relatively boring and uncomedic for the most part. As for the moral of the story, I couldn't really figure it out. I mean, I guess spend time with your family even if they're crazy, or even if it is crazy. The show, in terms of pacing, comedy, and style, remind me a lot of Kipper, but Kipper has more of a charm, and this is a lot less colorful and, again, really boring. I just wouldn't recommend the special unless you really like British comedies. For me, it's just not my thing. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to make more videos like this, collabing with people in the future, and just reviewing some really interesting stuff that not everyone talks about. I don't want to be one of those YouTubers who just talks about SpongeBob and Family Guy all the time. It's like, there's nothing wrong with covering those topics if you have an interesting perspective to bring to the table, but I feel like they've just been way overdone. So I'm trying to move into more obscure stuff, and I'm not saying I'm just going to go full obscure. I do want to talk about some popular shows, but focus on things that don't have a million videos, you know? So I really hope you enjoyed this. Thanks again to GeekToons. I really appreciate you. Please go subscribe to him, and actually just go subscribe to all the people I have listed in my description. They are awesome people, really nice, make great videos. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. Peace. Last note, big thank you to Rushaan for doing the thumbnail. Appreciate you, man. Links to his channels in the description.